was, what is this? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in April, and I'll just be going over those books and what I thought very briefly, because I have dedicated reviews to a lot of them. And if you want a dedicated review to one of the books that I'm talking about, just let me know and I will do that. So let's get started, because April was a pretty busy month for me. So we'll start with The Giver. I read this. It's good. I will say, because it's written for, I would say, middle school age, maybe a little bit older, it doesn't go as in-depth as I would like. It's dystopian. It's got a lot of harsh things in it, but the author is definitely trying to give a readable for that age version of events. So although I really liked it, I did feel like it was not dumbed down, but definitely made age appropriate with some of the really horrifying dystopian things that are happening, and some of the things that are going on in this society that could have been written about and could have been really, really horrifying, or even played up more. This just was a little bit less dark, I guess, than it could have been. Also, the ending left me wondering what happened. It's pretty open to interpretation, and I know that there are other books in the series, but I'm not sure I'm going to read them. So I was kind of like, oh, you know, what really happened? So that was my thoughts on this. Sorry, I'm going to try and go really rapid fire because I have a ton of books. All right, one down. I also read both of these books in April. I have a dedicated review to this one, and this one will be going up shortly, probably after this video. The Force Awakens book was pretty much just a script, you know, reading the script of that movie. The Last Jedi had a lot more to it, and I did enjoy it a lot more, but I will have a full review, and it's like a 20-minute long video, so I'm not even going to touch on what I think about it right now because I went way too long on that other video. So I read both of these, and I would definitely recommend this one over this one if you want a more in-depth look than what the movie gives you. Okay, this book I read, and I know there's a lot of controversy with this book, being people say it's a ripoff of Red Rising and The Hunger Games, and I haven't read Red Rising, but I did read The Hunger Games, and I can say this book reminded me a lot of The Hunger Games. It's very similar. A lot of the characters seem very similar to characters in The Hunger Games. A lot of the themes, very similar. And there's nothing wrong with this book. I will say that. There's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with the actual book. But I didn't love it because it felt like just a generic young adult book. It felt like something I've seen before. It felt like nothing special. And there, like I said, nothing wrong with it either. There was nothing really wrong with it. It was interesting and entertaining while I was reading it, but I probably won't even bother to read the rest of the series because there was just nothing that makes this any different than just a typical young adult fantasy dystopian book. I felt like the major weakness of this book was the main character, Mare. She is very gullible, very unlikable, very selfish, and it just didn't work for me with that. I definitely felt like the other weakness was the relationships in this book. I don't know where they're going, and there are like 3 guys at one point in this book, and apparently all of them are an option for her, and you don't get the feeling that she really cares. It could be anybody, it could be nobody, and I couldn't get behind this. I mean, if you think the rest of the series is really good, please let me know. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a couple ebooks really quick, and I'll get back to my stack. So I read Gathering Frost, and I'll put it over here. It was good. It's a fairy tale retelling of Sleeping Beauty. It's dystopian. It's very interesting setup in that these not aliens, I guess they're like, I think from another dimension. I was trying to remember, it read at the beginning of the month. And they come in and they have these powers, and the one queen is able to make you feel nothing. Like basically she puts everyone to sleep. And her son, the prince, runs away, and she hires one of her loyal soldiers to go track him down and to infiltrate the resistance that's trying to take away her throne. So that's a very brief overview. I'm not going to get into it. I did think the book was interesting and it was a quick read. Wasn't amazing and it wasn't my favorite Sleeping Beauty retelling, but it definitely was worth reading. And I would read more by this author. I think she's pretty good. The next book that I read for on my Kindle was, was The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. And I will say I am a huge H.G. Wells fan. I have read The Time Machine, The War of the Worlds, and The Island of Dr. Moreau, and liked all of them. I really like H.G. Wells, and I feel like he's a really, really great sci-fi writer and paved the way for a lot of the sci-fi that we have now. So, huge H.G. Wells fan. And I really like The Invisible Man, but if you go into it thinking it's a horror, it is not. The way that horror is now is not how those books are written. So if you read Dracula, Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, and you've seen movies and it's like this horror, it's not like that. It's just not. So with The Invisible Man, what got to me with that book, it's well written, I enjoyed it, but was how scary it could be. There's one scene where these people go into the room where they think they don't know he's invisible, but they go into his room and they're like rummaging around and talking, and it gives you a view of the room. And as the reader, I thought he was in there the whole time, watching them from like the bed, because they say like the bed's unmade. And so I thought he's in there. He isn't, but it adds this whole other element of fear and like this creepy sensation that they're in there talking and having this conversation, and he could just be sitting there watching them. And that was so creepy to me, and it really brought home that this could have been a very, very scary book, but it's not really written that way. It's good, don't get me wrong. I liked it, but it definitely, I feel like the thought of what it could have been kind of hurt it a little bit, but I will say it was a really, really good book. The next book I read on my Kindle, don't judge, was the Twilight graphic novel, just the first one, because it was free on Kindle Unlimited. And I kind of hate myself for reading it, but it's been so long since I read Twilight, and I really wanted to see what this graphic novel was like. And I will say that the artist, the way that it was drawn and everything, the way that the characters look, and the way that the pictures are done is very reminiscent of an anime, and it works so much better than the original Twilight, in my opinion, for that reason. Because if you've seen, is it Vampire Kiss? What is it? Vampire Night? There's an anime about vampires. I think it's Vampire Night. I'll put it in. And that whole, the idea of Twilight as an anime works much better than Twilight as a thing, as an actual book or movie. But the way that it's done, where there's close-ups of like her eyes and her mouth and her quivering and like the whole, big eyes and oh, the lion fell in love with the lamb, blink, blink, blink. That worked a lot better in the graphic novel, I will say. And Edward even being this kind of, off-putting, in my opinion, figure in the book, in the graphic novel, it's like he's like this mysterious, handsome, kind of anime character that waltzes in, and he almost can't help himself, that he's just so much better than everyone. I mean, like, those characters exist in anime, I'm sorry. And that made the graphic novel, in my opinion, a little bit more interesting and, I don't know, just a little bit more believable to me as someone who watches anime. I was like, oh, I guess I see that. I'm not recommending Twilight at all or saying that it's good or that it was a great book. I have my issues with Twilight, and if you like it, good. Like whatever you like. But I'm just saying, when I read the graphic novel, I was like, oh, if this would have been an anime, no one would have even thought twice. But the movies were terrible. Okay, so moving on from that. The next book that I read on my Kindle was Magic Unleashed, which is the last book in the series, The Hall of Blood and Mercy by K.M. Shea. And I love this series. It's urban fantasy. The main hero or anti-hero, Killian Drake, is a vampire, and the main heroine, the main girl, is a wizard. And they team up, basically, she teams up with him out of needing to survive, and he helps her. And their relationship was great. I loved it, and I love that this was, to me, like, this was a totally different kind of book for this author. I've read all of her stuff, and I love it. But she really didn't try and make the hero perfect, and that was great. He never changes completely into this, I'm a good guy now, I'm completely given up my, bad boy ways. He loves, okay, spoiler, he does love the main girl and they do have a relationship, but he never fully changes for her. He tells her, I trust you completely. I can show you that I trust you. I can show you that I'm going to be different, but I'm never going to tell you all the things that I do, all the things that happen. I'm always going to want to spare you that. And it doesn't mean I don't trust you. It's just who I am. And she accepts that. And I feel like that was better than having him be like, I'm changed now. I'm not the way that I was. All of that stuff that you know about me is done because I met you and now I'm perfect. I actually really like that. And I feel like it was totally different for this author and it worked. So those are all the books I read on my Kindle that I can remember right now. Dang it. Back to my stack. So I read Eleanor and Park, and this author, Rainbow Rowell, has been highly recommended to me on BookTube and Bookstagram. I'm on there, so follow me, Gwendolyn_Ransom. But anyway, this one I liked a lot. So I don't read a lot of romances, especially not young adult romances, because I'm in my 30s. But I felt like this was done really well, and the relationship was set up really sweet and innocent and cute, and I like that until later it's not. I will say that to me I didn't like that. I didn't like that eventually we're in the back of, the car with them, and it was just seemed, I wish it would have just stuck to the innocent aspect of their relationship. And although it doesn't get into a full, graphic sex scene or anything, it just didn't seem necessary, and I wish that it would have just kept their relationship of holding hands and the sweetness of it and that young love more innocent and pure, I guess, because that just, I'm in my 30s. I don't want to read about horny teenagers. Okay, I'm not going to keep that in the video. I don't want to read about teenage stuff like that. There's no nice way to say that. Okay, so I did love the character Park. I will say Eleanor, to me, kind of meh, iffy about her. She wasn't that great. She kind of was the embodiment of what I imagine Barb from Stranger Things if she was more emo. She is just not my favorite. And also I will say, and I want to know what you think if you read this book, the character depictions written as they are by a woman who is white, and me reading them as a person who is white, when they're talking about characters of different races, I was surprised at how she depicted all the different races in this book. They seem very heavily stereotypical, and even the way that they talk and the things that they say, I felt a little bit uncomfortable because I was like, wow, that's like a very strong stereotype. And let me know how you felt about it. Maybe it's just me, but even Eleanor talking about Park, who's Asian, she just, the way that she talks about him and his eyes and stuff, I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. Okay, tell me what you think about it. Too rambly. I have a dedicated review to this book, The Chemist. I didn't like it. I thought it was terrible. And yeah, I'm not going to get too much into it. It's a book by Stephenie Meyer. She wrote Twilight. It was supposed to be a thriller. It's not. It's a romance. If you like that and you like Stephenie Meyer and you like her Insta love, you'll like this. Here you go. So I also have a dedicated review to this. I didn't even finish it. I did not like it. I know Sarah J. Maas is so popular and I wanted to like this book. I love fairy tale retellings. This was not good. And I feel like this is an extremely overrated book with extremely overrated characters. And if you like the evil bad guy who is going to become a hero later and have a relationship with the main character, but first he's going to be really bad and torture her, and that is somehow something you're really into, this for you. I just can't really get past that. I didn't like Rysand, I think is how you say his name, and I didn't want to. I didn't want this next book to try and change my mind. I don't think that that's a redeemable thing, so for me this just didn't work. Okay, my favorites of the month probably were Cinder and Scarlet, which are the first two books in the Lunar Chronicles, and I'm going to do a full video on the whole series because I'm really enjoying it. And I will say the series gets better, like so far as I'm reading it, every book has been better. and I loved Cinder. I thought it was great. I will say for me, Kai as a romantic interest was pretty weak. I love the character Cinder, who's the Cinderella character, obviously, but I just didn't really enjoy Kai that much, and I felt like he didn't have the same personality and the depth that Cinder did. And then there was the whole scene where they're talking about space politics, and it always takes me back to the Star Wars prequels, and I tuned out pretty hard right there. So Kai was meh to me, but Cinder is great. I love her and I love the book. Scarlet, also great. Love Scarlet, love Wolf, but also the thing that I really liked about this book was how it expanded on Cinder even more. And she's totally like BA in this book, and I love that. I just really enjoyed her. I really enjoyed that this didn't just drop off and go into, you know, the whole Scarlet Wolf relationship. I felt like this book really was a great I feel like this book was really good follow-up to the first book and introduced more characters that are really great. I like Thorn, I like Scarlet, I like Wolf. This was just a fun book, and I'm enjoying the whole series, like I said, and I will be doing a full video, like I said. But definitely recommend. I think when you tell people about these books, I was talking to my brother, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's Cinderella, and she's like a cyborg. Most people are turned off by that, but the execution and the way the books are written is actually so good that even I was totally not interested, and then when I read them, I thought they were really wonderful. So those are all the books that I read in April, and thank you to everyone recently who's commented and liked my videos and subscribed. I appreciate it so much, and I definitely want to know what you read in April and what you're planning to read for the month of May. Please like and subscribe, and definitely tell me in the comments what you plan on reading this month, and I'm excited to talk to you more. Bye!